First of all, you guys, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, so I really like money, and you guys like money, so I think this will go well.
We're on the same side?
Yes.
All right.
So I would really like to start from a really positive framework of a lot of people demonize money. A lot of people demonize money in a whole lot of different ways, sometimes without even realizing it. So I'd like to hear from both of you. Let's start with Brad. Let's just be straightforward. What are some of the most positive things money has done for you?
Ooh. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is safety and security. So if you don't have money, you can end up living in environments that are like physically unsafe, that you are more likely to get victimized, more likely to get targeted, access to no access to good quality education, opportunities. So for me, I think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I start right at the bottom, like safety, security, being able to eat, not going to bed hungry. And I grew up with some of that, and my parents grew up with even more of it. And so for me, that's what I saw. I saw money as a ticket to put my kids in better schools, to make sure that they're not getting beat up every day at school. So on a very fundamental level.
Money, for me, the best thing I've been able to do with it is to own my time and have freedom of time. I feel like there's a very sad infographic that I came across when I was working at 9 to 5 that visually showed how much time or lack of time that we spend with our family after we move out, like 18. And it's really sad. You should Google it. I don't know the exact name, but I remember I was like, oh my God, like I love my parents. I love my family. And I was like, this is all the time I have left. It's like after 18, the majority of your time, I can't remember what the stat was.
It was 1 year.
It's 1 year.
1 year for the rest of your life with your family.
That's so sad. So I remember like thinking at that point of like, how can I not make that happen? Like, what do I need to do? And then with money, I've been able to buy back my time. And I love my parents so much, I've hired both of them as an excuse to talk to them every single day. And I feel like I'm trying to definitely change that stat, at least for myself.
When you hear someone complain about not being paid what they're worth, what thought comes to mind?
One of the chapter titles in our book, you're paid exactly what you're worth. Actually, this is the tough love of our book coming out, Start Thinking Rich, where we kind of create these headlines that kind of punch you in the face, but then the chapters are meant to, they're out of love. So this is a harsh thing. Everyone thinks they should get paid more, but we're actually reversing that and saying you're actually right now, you're paid exactly what you're worth. Here's why. It's because your skill sets, your economic value, because human value is priceless, economic value there's different things that allow that ceiling to be exactly where you're at. And it's, if you know the game and have awareness, like actually when I worked at as a busser and made minimum wage, like that's exactly how I'm supposed to get paid. Now, if I want to not be a busser, I need to learn other skill sets. I need to like either go to college or I need to study online. I went the entrepreneur route, so I went to YouTube, started learning how to blog and stuff like that. But these are all things that increase my value, which I can then apply to my economic value and then increase my worth. And I feel like it's actually a good thing if you're paid what you're worth, because you're in control of that. Now, if you're not satisfied, I totally agree with that, not being satisfied. But that should like start a fire with your desire of like hunger, of like, okay, I don't like what I'm paid right now. What do I need to do to change that? And that's where we're trying to reverse the script. Like the system's not going to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself.
I think a lot of the thought process that goes into I'm not being paid what I'm worth is very similar to the thought process of being a victim. And we know in self-development, the first step to get anybody to grow pretty much in any way is to first teach them to not be a victim. How do you approach getting somebody out of victimhood when it comes to finances?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, and we take a pretty hard line on it in the book, just because we love you, the reader, and we want you to have a better life, because it's so seductive, because there are so many people you can blame. Like there are so many people who, and parts of the system that are unfair, childhood trauma, all these things that are absolutely out of your control. And we talk about some of the early experiments that were done by Seligman on learned helplessness, where they would put dogs in cages and then they would shock them. And it would be a continuous shock. And the dog would jump around the cage, try to escape, would realize escape is impossible, and then would do the only thing that made sense, which is just lay down and whimper. Because at that point, conserving energy is the wisest strategy. So you just sort of get into a freeze mode, is what we would call it in psychology. And that happens to a lot of young people. You grow up in a family where there's abuse, where there's trauma. Growing up in poverty is just one trauma after another. And now the problem is they did another condition where they took those dogs and some dogs who hadn't had that experience. They put them in a cage where half the cage was electrified. There was a small little barrier. And if they had jumped over the barrier to the other side, no electric shock. And what they found is when they put dogs in that condition who didn't go through that first experiment, they jumped around and they found their way to safety and they were shock free. The dogs who had been in that first condition where escape was impossible, they didn't even try to escape. So quite literally, inches away was freedom, a lack of pain, a lack of suffering, and they didn't take action. And so that is, when you say self-development, and what we're trying to instill in people is this sense of power, personal power, because we get lulled into this idea that I grew up poor, so I'll be poor forever, no matter what I do. I can't get ahead. The whole system is rigged against me. And it's a very, very terrible mindset to be stuck in, even though there are elements of truth that people have learned, usually from that early childhood experience. And so we call it locus of control in psychology, essentially believing that the outcomes in your life that you're getting are due to your efforts, your lack of effort, your knowledge, your ignorance. And there's something so empowering about taking responsibility for that, because really that's the only way you're going to get ahead. That's the only way that life is going to change for you. But it's so difficult because it's real seductive to blame people. Like Adrian beat me in pickleball, allegedly, the last time we played. And, my brain immediately goes to, well, let me see your paddle. Like, what's up with the paddle? Or the sun's in my eyes. This is a normal human tendency. But the bottom line is, if you get stuck there, you're never going to get better at pickleball because it's always something to blame.
To this day, I still unconsciously look at the paddle. Like, it's just automatic. You look at the paddle, you go, well, what about this paddle? Or on stage, like, you look at the mic.
Yep, and you see tennis players do it with their strings too. It's like they hit a loose ball and they're like, here, let me straighten my strings. Yeah, it's the strings. It's the strength. Yeah, it's a natural tendency to look for those external sources of blame because it helps you feel better internally. And when you're poor, it is so much easier to blame everyone else to make you feel better than it is to actually do what it takes to become wealthy.
To make this as real as possible, would you be open to sharing, is there a time in your life when you acted like a victim around money?
I have not shared this. I feel like this to me is a funny story now, but I can't believe I actually said this to my parents. I was starting to read about money. This is in my early 20s. And realizing that I had nothing, absolutely nothing. And so all the books will tell you, it's like, the sooner you start investing, the sooner that money grows, you can be a millionaire. And then I'm like, well, I don't have money. So I literally asked my mom for money so that I could invest it in a Roth IRA. I asked her. And I feel like when I told her, I didn't come up with this sales presentation on like why I deserve it or earn it or like what I'm willing to do for it. I was like, no, like I'm just broke and like I don't have money. Like when I graduated college, it took me 6 months to get a job. So I was like, and I was like, but I need to invest. I was trying to learn about money when you don't have money. So I don't remember all the things I said. I just remember I can't believe I asked her at that, and I didn't say like, and I'm willing to do your yard work. I'm willing to do this. I just was like, no, I need it. Because then if I don't invest it now, like I won't be a millionaire. Like, and so she laughed at me. Thank God. I love my parents. She laughed at me. She's like, that is one of the most ridiculous things you've ever said. You have to go work for your own money and invest your own money. I'm not going to give you my money so you can invest in it. So gotta love tough parents.
What about you, Brad?
Oh, when I've been a victim around money, I mean, I'm just countless times, my friend, and I think it was growing up lower income. And, to the first question you asked, I grew up with a real negative opinion about rich people. I didn't know any rich people, but I knew that, my grandparents on both sides of my family living in trailer parks had been here for many, many years. Of course, it was the rich people keeping us down. They're evil. They're taking all your money. They're running all the politics. They're running all the corporations. I mean, I was sort of instilled with that sort of mindset around that, money's evil. Rich people got that way by taking advantage of others. And I think at that level of powerlessness, it's like, why bother trying? Like, luckily, I was able to snap out of it. And really what it did it for me is I'll never forget going to my buddy's house who I thought was mega rich. And in retrospect, they were middle class, but they had 2 bathrooms in their house. And I thought, oh my God, they're so rich. And so I'm in middle school, and I remember at dinner interviewing the dad, like, what do you do for a living? I mean, I became a psychologist in that moment, trying to figure out how he got to this thing, because I wanted to get to this place where I had 2 bathrooms. Oh my God. That was a mind-blowing thing for me, because I felt like this was a kid who went to the same school I did. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I could get this too. And so that it was being exposed to other people who had a different lifestyle and had a different mindset around money that really made that shift for me. And it was really empowering.
All right. So Adrian, what was a moment in your life where you decided that you would do whatever it takes? You would do whatever is necessary, shifting from that victim behavior? Because I want us to very clearly see the difference between the 2 behaviors. What was the moment where you just were like, oh, well, I will do whatever is realistically necessary?
I feel like after getting spanked by my mom verbally that I had to actually make money on my own. I wish I could say then I took off and then I started side hustling and just winning. And that's not what happened. I did try. I started trying. I had this belief that an optimistic outlook on life, that I could work hard and tinker around and explore different ways of making money. I was very curious. So like in Dubuque, Iowa, there wasn't many people trying to be a YouTuber in 2010. So I was like maybe the only person. So I was like kind of testing, exploring. But I feel like the breakthrough moment was first when I was dancing and I think God's miracle happened. I went from a living room dancer to a professional dancer for T-Pain. And there was something T-Pain did that changed that. Like, I feel like that was actually a moment that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make it happen. And he launched a song in front of us. It's called Reverse Cowgirl. It's a terrible song. Don't look it up. But he played it in front of us. And this is back in the day, iTunes, it's at 99 cents a download. And so he's like, we listened to it first. And then he looked at his manager. He's like, you want to play it? It's like, yeah, let's launch it. Launches it. And then I'm looking at the analytics or iTunes, you can see how many downloads it has, and like within like minutes, like 500,000, 1 million, 3 million, 10 million. So it's like, I just watched him make millions of dollars. He looked over at the manager and said, yeah, launch it. Like, he hit a button. And then T-Pain, he didn't go back into the office and work. Like, he got drunk and it was like 10 a.m. So like, to me, I was just, everything I had learned about what it takes to be successful, like work hard, go to college, like work, like grind, like all these things I'm reading in books, and I'm watching someone who's doing none of that. He's living his best life. He sings for a living, and he has people that are doing the work for him. So it was like just radically shifting everything. I feel like that moment was like, whoa, there's another way to do this. Like, there's an upper echelon. There's people who've figured out things. There's people who figured out how to do something they love and make tons of money for it. And that set me on the path to like try to replicate. So then I went to like full-time, like trying to be a content creator. And again, it did not take off right away. I started creating my first video I posted in 2010. I went full-time 2015. So that's 5 years of the side hustle.
Amazing. Yeah, a moment for me was I wanted to be a rock star. That was like my big thing. And I couldn't pay my toll bills. And so it was, for me, the kind of dash of realism was that all of the debt and all of the financial stress I was putting myself on was basically making me incapable, because I had like tremendous anxiety around it. And I was just constantly living in fear, that when I got old, I would have nothing and everything would be a disaster, which is kind of a funny fear because I already had nothing. But for me, it was sort of my stepping out of victimhood was sort of an acceptance of my current situation, of going, oh, I'm incapable of doing the dream that I'm shooting for. Not in a like negative way, but in an acceptance sort of way of like, I am not getting results here when I try to make this dream come true. And it was accepting the perspective of, for me, it was like determining what a win really was. And so to me, when I wanted to be a rock star, becoming a win was getting on stage in front of 10,000 people, which is not good for your dopamine systems because it's really hard to get that dopamine hit if you don't know how to play in front of 10,000 people. And so for me, it was really shifting to, $5 extra on my credit card that is maxed out is a win. For me, it was like a very, very like tiny thing that shifted for me. What about for you? What was a moment that was like, okay, like this is definitely stepping out of victimhood into realism?
Yeah, so I think of multiple incidents, and what I think we're all describing here are mindset shifts. Like in my experience, the map to success is actually fairly simple and straightforward if you can make the mindset shift. So the first one that comes to mind for me was when I was after high school, and I had some friends who were going to go backpack Europe. I thought, this is incredible. They're going to spend the summer doing that. And so I went to my mom and I said, hey, Mom, would it be possible for me to backpack Europe this summer? And she goes, that's incredible. What an incredible thing. Of course you can do that. She goes, I don't know how you can afford it. And I was like, damn, all right. But she was very supportive of this dream. And I don't know if she's being a little sarcastic, probably. And then another one that comes to mind is I was in my early 20s and I went over an icy bridge in South Dakota and I wrecked my Jeep, and it was very traumatic. I was sliding across a bridge, and then on the other side I caught a guardrail. Otherwise I would have been flipped over into a ravine, and it was just like I was really shaken up. And I remember coming home, and I called my dad, and mainly for some support and also some logistical advice. Where should I get this thing fixed? How do I go about it? And I told him the story. And instead of giving me comfort, oh no, I'm so sorry, son, he said to me, well, what could you do differently next time? And I was like, damn, that's harsh. I was mad. I was like, what do you mean? There's ice. And I went to the paddle, there's ice. My paddle doesn't have as much spin. The sun was in my eyes. And at the end of all that, after I got through being really mad, I realized that my dad's question dramatically decreased my chances of wrecking again, because I started to really think it through. And I'm like, well, I wasn't going over the speed limit, but there were icy road conditions, and my Jeep didn't have enough weight in the back, because then the back end got squirrely on me. And I started to study that. And so how can I actually drive this Jeep in a safer way? And so it was stuff like that really sort of shifted things. And so that mindset shift went right into my relationship with money, where I was working a lot of, I worked in a cemetery, and I worked building roads, I was holding the stop go sign for the longest day of my life, by the way, when you do that for 12 hours. And through those experiences, I was like, man, this isn't necessarily for me. And then I started to observe that the longer people stayed in school, the less they sweated and the more money they made. And that was sort of like the formula for me. I was like, maybe I'll continue to go to school. So, but I think if I didn't have that mindset where it's, you want to go to Europe? Okay, well, how are you going to get your ass there? Okay. You wrecked your Jeep. Well, what can you do differently next time? Damn. It was a series of those, I think, parenting events, frankly, that set me on this, look, life is what you make it, and you're the one responsible for it. And whether you get what you want or you don't get what you want, it's up to you.
I have a friend who says, regardless of insurance, the car wreck is always your fault. Because any other perspective is highly dangerous for your physical health. I think there's a lot of good to having some of that perspective. Adrian, there's something I really liked that you mentioned as you were telling your story about, posting a song, making a bunch of money, and getting drunk at 10 a.m. that I think touches to an important point, which is do whatever it takes does not necessarily mean work harder. To embrace realism doesn't mean I just have to put more effort in like whatever way I think of effort. Can you speak to that point? I think we could probably go into sort of a conversation around leverage and you know how to do bigger things with less effort. But like I grew up with a very strong work harder ethic. That same friend that I said, he calls me the horse from Animal Farm, which is the character that just answers every problem with must work harder until he gets sent off the glue factory. And that is definitely my default. It's like, oh, if I need to solve this problem, I better work harder. But I mean, a lot of my growth has come from switching that. And yes, you have to be willing to work hard. You have to be willing to put effort into something. But what is the difference between just working hard and this idea of embracing reality of I just have to do the realistic thing that gets me the result that I want?
Yeah, I grew up the same way. My parents are super Mexican household, so everything was about working harder. And here's the thing, I don't want to have a message of me ever say, guys, you actually don't need to work hard to make it. Because that is a level, it's an element, it's part of the formula. You do need to work hard. But I think it's this nuanced balance of working hard is something that every successful person has done, but it's not always working harder. Then it's working smarter, and then you add leverage, and then there's I think your mindset of how you think you create income, I think has a lot to do with it. So if your only mindset is like the more I work, the harder I work, the more money I make. To me, that's a very painful way of making money forever. I think that's the mindset I used to have. I think now I believe the more value I create, the more money I make. And value has nothing to do with working hard anymore. I spent most of my life working hard. Now I have experience. I have experience that I can leverage, and I can really change someone's life with some of that experience, packaged in certain ways. Our book that's coming out, a book is a great way that you add value. And now it's like it's more like thinking, like a very high critical thinking of strategy in terms of like how you leverage your experience and create value for people. And so I think a better motto is like, if you want to be a millionaire, help a million people, and think about like how you can help others. And products help us in all different types of ways. Like there's micro ways, macro ways. I'm not saying you need to change someone's life to make money. Every product that I'm wearing right now, like pants, I'm wearing pants so people don't stare at me, right? That's value. Like so like all these things add value, but think of how you can add value to the world. I think that's a much healthier formula. And I'll just share lastly, like what helped me shift was not a very positive experience. I didn't go from like, I need to work harder and then all of a sudden I need to add value. It was more of when I first launched my very first product. It was a 60-minute dance tutorial on how to dance the robot. I was trying to leverage my dance experience. And that after 2.5 years of making $0, I made $1,000 in a month. Life-changing, because I was at a call center working pretty much minimum wage. And I felt, instead of feeling amazing, I felt guilty. Because I was like, I just made a dance video. I dance for fun. I love dancing. And I made $1,000. That's more than my take-home pay, like at a 9 to 5 where I'm working 40s. And so that was like, to me, it's like this, that is like where I had awareness. Like I actually didn't feel good. I felt guilty because it was easy. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Those are totally different money scripts. And from it has to be work hard. You have to sacrifice to make money. So it's interesting because I do believe you do need to work hard. And any successful person I know has made sacrifices, but it's like these are parts of an equation. And I think the balance of like how much the things are important, change as you evolve.
Yeah. I think it takes a lot of hard work. It really does. And however, lifestyle design comes into play. And I realized that I had sort of maxed out my business model on the get paid by the hour, which is as a clinical psychologist, that's how you get paid. It's billable hours. And, I'm not going to disparage that because it's an incredible way to get into the 6-figure income. I realized though, and again, I got exposed to other business models. This is the thing that I absolutely love about your podcast, about the world we live in. Like when I grew up, people, you didn't have access to any of this information. You didn't have access to different ways of thinking. You had books in the library, but somebody had to tell you to go read this particular book. I mean, there were no algorithms feeding you other ways of thinking about things. Like we live in an incredible time. But for me, it was being exposed to other ways of doing business. And so for me, I started to consult with people in the financial service industry. And I would go in and help them, teach them how to be more effective with their clients, how to deal with clients who are self-destructive around money and all this. And I realized they had a better business model. And the way I knew that is because they were golfing a lot more than I was, and still servicing people in a very profound way. And I was like, wow, I like that business model a little better. And so I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how can I buy back more of my time? Like Adrian and I talk about it in Start Thinking Rich. Like to us, that is what wealth is. Wealth is owning your time. And so I looked at it like, how much more of my time can I buy back so that I own more and more of it? And so that I went on that pursuit. But it really was a mindset shift around there are other ways to do this. It's not just about working hard. Like maybe I can do tons of hard work and then have that hard work live and breathe and go on and make money for me. Now, it took me a lot of hard work to put that in place, but it now can have recurring revenue as I move forward. So that type of business model really has changed my experience of life. And I have young kids, and I get to coach their baseball. I get to coach, whatever sport they're doing, tennis. I get to pick them up at school, drop them off at school. I mean, I feel so incredibly blessed, and it's something that I want everyone to have. I want everyone to own more and more of their time so they can spend it doing what they love most.
I think about effort as a form of input, and there are many forms of input. And effort's a little confusing because usually you apply effort to each input to some degree, right? So it feels like, oh, I just need more of this effort thing, and then it'll work out. But when I have conversations with clients about this, it's almost always, can we look at all of the possible inputs, like all of the possible levers that we could move? If you're thinking I need to work harder, then you're thinking about one lever. And so what are the other levers available that you could move in order to get a result? And I think we should talk about that a little bit. Like, what are the levers that are available to move yourself forward financially?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll say that we have a bit of a selection bias with your clients too, right? These are people who probably have worked hard to get here.
Yes.
And I think, as Adrian said, that's kind of like a given. Like, you got to have that at some level. And as a matter of fact, like if I see my children not working hard, I'm mortified.
Oh yeah, and I definitely want to talk about working hard. I definitely want to do that.
But that same lever that gets you there also limits your growth.
Yes.
And which I think is the clients you're working with, because first of all, it's a given. And by the way, we know tons of people. Well, my family, for example, really hard workers living in a trailer park. Like, it's not the only lever. And because it's like, if all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. And it's like you're going to be mopping floors harder and better and harder. Or teachers, for example, you're going to become the best teacher of the year, all these awards. Guess what? Same paycheck, and not only that, now you're getting burned out. Now you're getting bitter. And so it's a lever that we want everyone to have, but then it can really, really limit your success in terms of owning more of your time. And so the one lever that I'll say, and then Adrian, I think, has a bunch more levers in his toolbox, but it's the whole concept of investing. Like, it's a huge, huge lever. And the younger you can do it, the better. And for me, I always shot for like 30% of my income. And this is a mindset you can have when you get your first job. You will become a multimillionaire, just plain and simple. Quite simply, 30% of every dollar I get immediately goes to my financial freedom fund. And because I'm sleeping at night, I'm doing other things during the day, that thing is cranking out money for me. and right now it's like, it's enough money to live on. And that's over there. That lever is just growing and multiplying. And I became a millionaire while working in a public school. Like we're all entrepreneurs here. I'm a huge fan of it, but understand this, 70% of millionaires are employees and professionals. Like it's something that's available to literally everyone. And I used to work in low income high schools, and I would run the numbers and the math with kids working at McDonald's. I'm like, hey, look, you can go to college. You want to increase your income. That's all great. I just want to show you this. You can become a multimillionaire working at McDonald's. Here's the math. It's very simple. And so when people do not have that lever in play, regardless of where they are in this process, they're really hurting themselves.
I think investing is twofold. I feel like there's investing in yourself, and I feel like you can't see it on the camera shot here. And if you're listening to this, there's a library of amazing books, and I feel like we have the almost exact same library. So which is awesome. Like to me, like that every time you read a book, you're investing in yourself. You're investing that you are going to take this information. It's going to improve your life. And sure, I saw a couple. I don't know if I saw Dune or something, but I'm not talking about those kind of books. I'm not talking about Harry Potter. I'm talking about you got a library here full of like self-help, money, health books, like all those things we read to learn and improve. And also Brad's talking about is like investing your income. And this, I think, is the ultimate hack to get wealthy. This is something I don't know how anyone who's ever become wealthy has not invested their money. So it's like, this is something you also have to do. You have to invest in yourself. You have to invest your money because eventually you get to a point where I'm not at this point, by the way, where despite you actually don't need to work at all, or even if you worked your hardest and you pulled all the levers, your money is going to always make more money than however much you can make. I'm not at that point. I'm at the point though where like I have a really nice house and car, and I actually have a pickleball court at my house that just got finished last week, so you got to come over and play. And all that and my whole entire lifestyle is all paid for by my investments. So like living off my investments, that's like, again, if I don't have to work hard, I don't have to do anything, and my money is making money for me. That's a lever that it seems like such a hard one to commit to at the beginning, and then it's that magic secret sauce that compounds, and eventually now the hardest thing is, and this as you continue your growth, is your discipline and like almost restraining your desire. Because some people think, well, you have all this money now, it must be easier for you to like do this. But the reality is shiny objects just get bigger and fancier and nicer. And if you ever been on Zillow and you looked up like how much you can afford right now, and you look up a $1 million home and a $2 million home and a $10 million home, like they all are much nicer. They look great. Like, so like as our incomes increase, there's always desire that's going to be able, if you never tame that, you could always go back to the beginning. So it's like, that's just like a huge mindset to talk about. But I think you got investing, leverage in terms of like what you know, and it kind of goes hand in hand. Like if you are reading books and you're accumulating this experience, even if you're 9 to 5, like there's experiences that you can leverage on like e-lancing websites, but in a different vertical that can pay more. So knowing how to leverage your experience, communication, I think the internet is the great equalizer. I think it allows opportunity where in a corporate or 9 to 5 setting don't exist. In 9 to 5 settings, we could talk about it. There's systemic problems and issues, and there's racial bias, and there's gender bias, and there's glass ceilings that really do exist. On the internet, they don't exist. Like you can all create value from scratch on the internet. I truly think it's a great equalizer. The internet does not care if you're a felon. I know felons that make a lot of money. The internet doesn't care how old you are. I have senior citizens that are making 6 figures. I have like 18-year-olds and under that like take my classes. Brad's kid's about to make $5,000 this month from like a side hustle. So it's like the internet does not care who you are, what you look like. And so it's just a great playing platform. So it's like, that's not leveraging like technology and a medium. But man, there's so many levers. What am I missing?
I don't know if I can rattle off the Naval list, but I think it's code, people, code, labor, other people's labor, capital, and content, I think are 4, and I think there's like 5, and I'm probably missing one. But yeah, it's like, how can you do more one to many as opposed to one to one, I think, is a big part of it. I like what you said about Zillow. I often call Zillow 30 plus porn.
I've never heard that. That's so good.
Because, you know, all the adults in America that are 30 plus are just hopping on there and go, oh, look at that house. You know, it's like, maybe I could get that one. So I want to talk more about making money, but before we get to it, what about feeling rich? So this kind of like goes to what you were talking about, is like what are some of the things that you've done in your life to maybe set some limits? Because I realized, like, for me, I needed to start feeling rich a little bit even before I started making more money. Like, I think that came first. Yeah, it definitely did, because I actually paid my debt off while living on the poverty line. I paid all of my debt off, like student debt and credit card, while continuing to make a poverty level income. And so, yeah, thank you. It's quite a journey. But yeah, I had to create feelings of wealth, create experiences of wealth in my mind before, or just my perspective, before I could get there. My income came later. And so, like, what are your thoughts on setting those limits in a way that doesn't make you miserable, but actually makes you more happy?
I think I'm a believer that you should try to enjoy life and not just sacrifice or sell your 20s or 30s like to eventually hit some financial freedom number. Like, because then when you hit that number, you're not going to know actually how to live your life. Like, you'll have the income, but now you'll be miserable. So I think there's small things you can do, like figuring out what you enjoy. A lot of financial books talk about, like, well, if you give up that $5 latte, that latte compounds. And, you know, and I think, like, if you actually, and I love going to coffee shops. One of my favorite things to do when I travel, like, actually, when I lived in Europe for a year, spent $17,000 on coffee that year. Best money I ever spent. I loved it. So it's like finding things that you love, and so much of what you love. I think this could be something really, really going deep on what is it you love. Because if you just stay at the superficial, it's going to look or sound like what Instagram tells you, which is like nice objects, fancy dinners, hors d'oeuvres, champagne, caviar. Like, these aren't really superficial for most people. I don't like, every time I look at caviar, it's like $300. I'm like, nah. I mean, I've had it when I went to Norway, but it's like how do I get to that spot? I don't know. Does it mean like I triple my net worth, then all of a sudden I become a caviar? I don't think so. So, like, the algorithm isn't it. I think there's two phases of my life where I started to feel really rich. One was when we moved to Europe. I felt like I was making enough income. My wife was still working at Deloitte though. And she could have quit, but she wasn't ready to leave, and she wanted to be a partner. And so for me, every day was amazing. I'd wake up. I had because of the time zone difference, I was unbothered for the first 6 hours. I'd walk to a new coffee shop. I had so much free time. I read. That was the most time I've ever read. I feel like it was the first time I realized all this time I have. And I wasn't going shopping. It was like all the time exploring that new freedom. But then I realized, like, Ashley would come home from work and I would be like unloading to her like how awesome my day was. And I learned, like, I'll never have my peak happiness of my rich life if my wife's not part of it. She can't be working a 9 to 5. And so, like, we really work together, because one thing, sometimes we have ideas in our head of what our dreams are that include other people, and you realize that's actually not their dream, which is super funny. So because Ashley was like, well, if you start making, first it was like, if you make 20K a month, they'll quit. And then I hit that number. She's like, no, 30K, 40K. She kept increasing the number, but the reality was she just didn't want to leave. Eventually she did leave. And then after the year we lived in Europe, we lived in a van. It was my wife and I. She was now the CFO of our company, and we had nothing. We didn't own anything. Everything we owned was in that van, and we spent all the time outside, exploring, hiking, jumping in lakes and off waterfalls and stuff. And to me, like, that's actually where I felt the most rich, because it was true time freedom, and I had my wife with me every single minute, which some people might be like, oh my God, that's way too much time. But for me, we loved it. Our relationship got better when we lived in the van, had time to each other, and we got to know each other better, even after being married for many years. So now we live in Austin, Texas. We have these nice things, but I feel like I still see my rich life as having time freedom to spend it with people I love and doing things I love. And right now that looks like hanging out with my wife, playing pickleball, and going to coffee shops.
What's something careful that you do, Brad, to make sure that you feel rich?
Okay, so this is a bit of a growth edge for me. Growing up low income, one of the driving forces in my life that has got me to be wealthy is this like, oh no, I gotta save, I gotta invest, there's not enough, you know? And so ironically, in the research we've done, ultra wealthy people tend to have some of that vigilance, but there's some anxiety associated with it, right? And there's some concern about the future. So some of that is good. Like a squirrel who's not worried about starving in the winter saves no nuts and dies, you know? So some of that is good. Just like the work hard, some of that is good. But if you have too much of it, then you're like an Ebenezer Scrooge who has wealth and you're eating gruel and your experience of life is misery and suffering and scarcity and anxiety. And that to be honest, that is my growth edge. And so when my wife first met me, I was similarly, trying to pay off my debt like you were. So I was working in a public school. I paid off $100,000 in student loan debt in 3 years while fully funding my 401k. But I was living like a pauper. Like I had a $500 car. My family still teases me because it was in Hawaii and the roof leaked and
Single man, no bed frame.
Exactly. I had a mattress on the floor. I had lawn chairs for furniture.
Yeah.
Ping pong table was the only, I had that instead of a dinner table. And so that's how I was living my life. And my family laughs at me because I was living in Hawaii. My roof leaked and I was gone for a couple weeks and I came back and there was grass growing in the bottom of the carpet of the car. And by the way, I was very comfortable that way because I'm like, I'm getting out of debt. But then my wife came into my life and I'm not sure why she married me seeing that. But I think she knew I was worried about the future, which is good, right? But she's like, maybe we should get a couch. And I remember going, a couch? Get away from me. You're going to like spend all my money. But that was part of my lesson in learning that, couches are comfortable, by the way. Like, I know you have one. I'd recommend it. But this is part of the truth around money. So it's very important to save for a rainy day. It's important to save for the future. You got to do it. But also you have to enjoy life. And so my philosophy from that moment on was I have a very clear goal. The first thing I do with my money is I set aside what I want for financial freedom. Like I know that's going to take care of me. I know that's going to give me exactly what I want. Now you got this pile of money here. That is your rich life. So if you want to spend it on coffee, spend it on coffee. If you want to spend it on a nicer car, spend it on a nicer car. Most Americans, though, skip the first part. And that's the problem. And that's why they'll never become wealthy. So for me, my philosophy and my approach to budgeting essentially is here are my financial goals. I'm going to take care of all those. Everything's taken care of. Here's the rest of the money. Let's have fun. Let's live life.
I think it's actually worth mentioning. You said you don't know why she picked you, kind of as a joke. But the reality is it's highly attractive to be a person who is trying to follow a good path, and it's very identifiable. And I mention this because I think a lot of us, when we are struggling with money, like a big part of why we struggle with it is the fear of what other people think, right? And whether or not people will like us if we have grass growing through something where grass shouldn't be growing. But the reality is when it's done in the right spirit, it's extremely charismatic because people see that you're on your mission.
I love what you're saying because growing up lower income, I always felt bad about myself compared to boys and young men my age who had this really nice fancy sports car and better clothes and all this. But I realize what you're saying is absolutely correct. And I'll speak specifically to heterosexual males who are interested in getting women to like them. Like women will have really good antennas for potential. And so I got a friend, like one of my best friends in Boulder, multimillionaire. You're not in Boulder unless you're a multimillionaire. But his wife was attracted to him because first time she went over to his house, she went into his bathroom and saw a copy of The Millionaire Next Door. And she saw that and she's like, I'm going to marry this guy.
Yep.
Like it was like that. And he didn't have outward displays of wealth at all. He was building himself. And I think that, just to give some hope and inspiration to young males out there who don't have that fancy this or that, women will marry you and be attracted to you for the potential, because they want to make sure that you're going to be a good partner, obviously, in all those great ways, and also that you can potentially be a good provider and a good protector. And so anyway, take a lot of self-esteem in the mission, because people will smell it on you, and not just members of the opposite sex if you're heterosexual, but also future employers, future business partners. I mean, all sorts of opportunities will come your way if you're living in that vibe.
Yeah, we're looking all the time for results and potential. And women in particular are extremely good. They're so insightful at identifying both results and potential. Like identifying when somebody, talks a big game and they're really not doing anything, right? And then also identifying somebody who is not talking a big game, but is just working hard. And I think it's a really important thing. I mean, we know that there's like quite a lot of relationship issues going on in the US right now. And I think that this is a really relevant part of money, is for guys in particular to understand how valuable it is to care about going down the right path financially, because it's not just the money, it's a representation of what type of behavior you like to engage in. And we all want good people who are trying to work hard and trying to get results. And a lot of times it's starting really, really small. I wanted to say on the feeling wealthy thing, for me, every time I drive past a toll road now, I try to make a point to go, yeah, I'm rich.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I've found like perspective on it really helps. Like if I can maintain perspective, and like I can afford more than a toll road now, but if I drive by a toll road and I go, yeah, I'm rich, like every single time, and I just make that a habit, like it keeps my perspective right, so that I value what I have and I feel good about it. And then the other thing that both of you touched on, the happiness part, the more clear you are on what makes you happy, the less you have to spend on happiness. If we are unclear on what makes us happy, like you said, of like following the algorithm, and we don't know if the Lamborghini or the Ferrari is the one that we make us happy, so we have to buy both. I mean, hell, if you at least just know that Lambos are what make you happy, then you can just buy the Lambo.
Right.
But if you go a couple layers deeper, you can start to realize like, oh, okay, so it's not the Lambo itself, it's some form of recognition. I like to be recognized. Oh, okay, there are much more efficient ways to get recognized in life than to buy Lambos. And yeah, you can go down a self-development path of, do I need recognition? Do I need validation? But also there's just stuff that we like, and we like to be recognized. And so, okay, what's a budget form of recognition? Which actually is exactly what you spoke to, which was being a person who was on your mission, and you got recognized for that.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's super true. Okay, so let's talk about working hard now. So what is intelligent effort? What is the difference between we just need to like try harder and it's sort of blind and you don't get results, and I am going to do whatever it takes and I'm going to put massive effort on that? Like I'm going to put massive effort on the right thing. What's the difference between intelligent effort and just blind more effort?
I think one of the most intelligent things you can think is that you actually don't know shit. Like you don't know it all. So that level of awareness allows you to have an open mind across new opportunities and frontiers. And right now, technology and AI, what's the most latest, greatest thing that's going to fundamentally change how we work? It is AI. So it's like, if you assume that this path, because your parents' path, or because you see something and most people are making these assumptions that this is the best path. I feel like that you have to keep an open mind across everything. I feel like right now that includes myself. I keep an open mind. Like I could totally change and not create content if I felt like there's something that's better that is going to allow me to live my best life. Right now, being a content creator, it seems like it's it, and I did it the safe way. I didn't go all in. I didn't take debt. I didn't leverage it. But I think assuming that assuming a path is the right one is where people go wrong. I remember my dad. I did a lot of yard work, of course, being Mexican as a kid, and by the way, I'm about to say something that might offend people. I just want to just mention, it's just for example, but like I grew up around a lot of Mexicans. We love Mexican. I am Mexican. There's a lot of Mexicans in where we grew up. My dad, if he ever had this huge project, he would drive by the local 7-Eleven. They're all waiting there in the morning to get picked up for a job. So these people, they show up every day with the hope that someone will pick them up to make money, right? And these people, I would say, work harder than I've ever worked. They are actually working hard. They're breaking their back. They're sweating. They're getting stuff done. And so you think of like that lineage of, if that's what you grew up with, and your parents like, well, how do I make more money? It's like, well, you got to go and get 7-Eleven. That's the path. So like it's that level of awareness. Like, is this the best path, or are there more paths? And then you learn there's tons of paths. I didn't realize, if it wasn't for the miracle of a chance for me to go and see what a celebrity lifestyle looks like, I would have never ever thought. I would have totally been in a probably middle class trajectory of just working hard. I wanted to be a marketing director at a marketing agency. Like, everything changed when I saw there was another path. And this is most people. Now, when we think about what it takes to become a millionaire, most people do not grow up in households with millionaires. We don't have friends that are millionaires. And so when you're getting advice on how to be a millionaire, it's based all off assumption, and it's usually incorrect. So this is where now access to podcasts like these and the pursuit of knowledge and really what the underlying thing that I don't know everything is going to allow you to have an open mind and try to explore lots of opportunities. And the thing I want to say to no matter where you're at is there's actually so many paths to win, which is a great thing.
Brad, how do you work hard and smart?
Yeah, so for me, it's about goals. So if your goal is to make $50 a day, and that's your goal, then standing outside the 7-Eleven might be a great option. That might be the right way to do it. And to work hard and to sweat, that might be the right way to do it. And so that's why you got to be really, really careful about what are your goals, because what you vision is, you're not going to be able to achieve anything that you're not picturing already, that you don't have a vision of is possible. And so the clearer you can get around the goals, and by the way, I think this is an evolution. Like for me, my goal was to go to college. Then my goal was to get a doctorate. Then my goal was to get out of the billable hour mindset and find other ways. And I'll stop growing when I stop having goals. So to me, it's about intelligent work is having a goal that you really want to achieve. And by the way, it's okay to not want to do it. Like, it's okay. I remember working in high school with a girl who was a drummer, and she was like the number 2 drummer, and she wanted to be first chair. And first of all, I'm like, do you really want to be first chair? Let's test that out a little bit. Passion tests that goal. And so we looked at, well, how many hours a week is that guy practicing versus you? And I made her do this whole analysis, and it turned out he was practicing maybe 10 hours a week with private lessons, and she was practicing 1 hour a week. And I'm like, all right, well, it's real simple. Practice 11 hours a week. And she's like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, all right, so don't you feel better about being second chair? Maybe second chair is cool. Like, maybe that's not your goal. By the way, this person now owns like a construction company, just outstanding success. So be really careful about what your goals are, and and always be looking to upgrade your goals, unless you're totally happy where you're at. By the way, that's fine too. But for me anyway, it's always about what is that goal, because if you can identify the goal, you can find people who've already achieved it. There's a model to making this happen. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and then you just go study their mindsets and their habits and their strategies.
I think that I'll share transparently. This is the most recent mindset shift I've had in terms of following what I just said about like assuming I don't know anything. I thought my business is super great, makes 7 figures as a content creator, and then in Austin at Internet Marketing Party, I've met a ton of entrepreneurs who've exited their company. It's like, exit. So yeah, I sold my company, and then I was like, how do you do that? And so I didn't even like. I know people have sold businesses, but I didn't know someone like me. Or others, people my age and younger or older, who have sold it for a little bit or a lot of it, or like 30 million, 50 million. And so as I started to ask questions, I learned, because I had these wrong assumptions. It wasn't even an assumption. I didn't even think I could do something like that. And then after talking, this was when I first moved here 3 years ago, he was like, well, you're doing really great, but I don't think you could actually sell any of the stuff you're doing. And I was like, what? Like, so I can never exit, and because most of my stuff back then was all based off Adrian Brambila, so I can't sell Adrian Brambila, right? So then that helped me think of like, how do I create something that's an asset that can sell, that I could exit from, something that can generate income way after me. So then again, it took me a while to try to wrap my mind around it, but this year I finally launched the software, and that's my first attempt at it, and I'm only like 6 months in. So depending on the history of this video, it could totally flop in the future. It could do really well, or maybe I've sold it by now. I have no idea. But it's just a great thing to expose yourself to new people and try. And like going to Internet Marketing Party, when I first moved here, I didn't know anyone, and I feel like I'm pretty extroverted, but I still get butterflies and nervousness when I walk into a room in a new city, don't know anyone. I'm trying to make friends, and so I put in that risk to get exposure to these types of people, and now I've learned of this other path. And I feel like if you're a student of life and business, there's so many people who've lived many, many different lifestyles than us, and we can learn so much from. So that's one thing that just triggered for me.
At different levels of the game of wealth, sometimes you have to play by different rules. There are different things there are things that change. But something you spoke to earlier of like feeling wealthy, that still being an edge for you, like working on that. What's another thing, or like what is something that's really important to you that you have had to continue working on at every level of the game? What is something that somebody needs to know to work on wealth that is like it's always there?
Well, a couple things come to mind. First is I can't let you get away with saying the word game and us not really talking about it. Like, the whole thing is a game. And I mean, that's the way to look at it. Like, we have a chapter that says only poor people think the system is rigged. And by the way, let me just distinguish, because this goes back to what we talked about earlier. Like, poor is a mindset. Like, broke, hey, we've all been broke. But I know broke people with rich mindsets, right? It's totally different deal.
And I agree. It is a game. And the more I view it as a game, the more my stress reduces.
Yes.
I think it is a useful framework. I really believe in like useful truths. Yeah. It's a big thing for me, is like, because I'm sort of pretty far into the philosophy and self-development world, right? And people go through a lot of theories in this world, and they love to go down the rabbit hole of all the sad Russian philosophers that make you very, very depressed. Yeah. And you know, I've had people come to me, they're like, I can't get out of this thought loop because I keep thinking about this thing that this philosopher told me. And I'm like, well, what if you stopped thinking that thought loop? What if you like just didn't think it anymore, right? Because there's mental traps that we get stuck in. We get stuck in cycles, and like definitely in money. Probably some of the most cycles. When you think of it as a game, I think you can think of it as like, okay, well, what level of the game do I want to play? What financial game do I want to play? What episode am I on?
Yeah, and the fact that you're playing a game, like it's if you could look at the system as being rigged, which, by the way, as Adrian said, yeah, there's lots of barriers that are totally unfair. But if you look at it like it's a game, it's like growing up poor, I felt like the rich people were out to get us and suppress us and keep us down, and politicians were just lying to get elected. And then when I realized it's a game, I was like, oh, so you got to just learn the rules. First of all, learn the rules, then you got to learn how to play the game. And so this is a mindset I think is so incredibly powerful. And so for me, it's always shifting that towards my next goal. So like when I wanted to become an author, I started to ask people about it, and everyone around me told me first of all, who are you to write a book? Like, who do you think you are? Number one. Number two, it's impossible. It's hard, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized I'm talking to people who know nothing about the book writing game. So I found somebody who had written a book. And what's so fascinating is the mindset is just flips instantly, because their mindset is like, well, of course you could write a book. I mean, you want to get around people who are like, well, of course you could do that. Of course you can have that. And not just in fantasy, because they've done it, or they're further along than you are. And if you want to play the existential philosopher Russian game, I know how that game ends for a lot of those people if you read their Wikipedia profiles, and it's not good. You know, it's usually an early demise.
There was a lot of starvation.
Yeah. So for me anyway, it's like, what is the game you want to play? First of all, recognize that you're playing a game. Most people are just subconsciously playing a game, and they think that's reality. And that's the saddest part that I run across, is like people who are just stuck in this loop and they think this is reality. No, you're stuck in a loop. You're playing a game. And if you're not getting what you want out of that game, if you're not getting the results, find another game and learn to play that.
Yeah, the original question was, what's the thing to remember at any level of the game? And then you jumped on the word game, and I think it's a really amazing thing to maintain, is remember that it is a game. That's the thing you need to remember at every level, is that it is a game. What about you, Adrian? Is there something that's been a constant that, like, at every level you've had to remember?
I feel like as part of my Brambila family tree, I have made the most money, but I've also spent the most money, probably. And actually, I shouldn't say probably, definitely. Like, I have, like, a couple of things I'll just mention I bought that, which are ridiculous. I have a $15,000 cold plunge. It's a Morosco. It's the same one Joe Rogan got. Like, as soon as I saw it, I got it, right? Something like that. Like, when I make these purchases, my parents, they love giving me shit about it. Like, Adrian, you're a minimalist. Look at him with his $15,000 cold plunge. And something that I try to do such a good job reminding myself is to never outspend or like let those desires to, like, all the stuff I've worked to get to this point, to then jeopardize that with consumption. And so I feel like because I'm thinking about it so much, I've never put myself in a financial bind in my entire life. I've never racked up credit card debt, but I feel like I'm now in uncharted territory for my family and for most of my peers that I grew up with, and I'm meeting other people who have more, like, yesterday I went to this guy's house. It's probably like a 10,000 square foot house, and I don't know how much money he makes. Maybe he's living way underneath his means. I have no idea. But to me, as I'm starting to meet these other people, I have to, like, remind myself of make sure I always stay in line with what I feel good, and I'm okay with spending on nice things if they make a contribution. Like the cold plunge, I use it every single day. Like, I'm hoping I'm going to try to convince you after this podcast we come over and hop in. So, like, for me, it's like I'm verbally struggling with it, because, like, I'm trying to constantly remind myself of this balance of, like, it's okay to also spend money, but it's all making sure that I never. I've read too much stories of people that just spend it and lose it all, but I don't think I'll ever be that person. Hopefully this doesn't become a meme one day.
What's the number one belief about money that holds people back?
Ooh, so I've studied many of these. Can I give you three? I'll give them to you real quick. The first one is money is bad and rich people are evil. That'll keep you poor forever. The next one is that more stuff's going to make you happier and solve all your problems. It'll give you instant buzz. It disappears. The debt stays forever. And then the third one is that your self-worth equals your net worth. And so you have to have outward displays of wealth to show people you've made it. That's a very destructive mindset we have in the United States that keeps a lot of people poor.
How does childhood shape your relationship with money?
Your relationship with money is formed in your childhood. And so the best thing you could do is to become an anthropologist to your own childhood. Like, go interview your parents. What was it like for them growing up around money? Look for those family stories, because they create our beliefs around money, which we call money scripts. And those money scripts predict every outcome you're getting in life. And so if you're not happy with what you're getting, whether it's income, net worth, your relationship with credit card debt, you got to look at those beliefs, and they directly relate to your family history, sometimes going back for generations. So look for those family stories.
Love it. What's your best advice for overcoming self-doubt?
I think failure to me is something that I've become very comfortable with. And I think if you're not failing at something, that means you're not trying. And I think in terms of like as a content creator or applying for jobs, these are things that naturally, in order to get a win, you have to get rejected. And so every sign of rejection, you could take two things like one, I'm not worthy. That's why I got rejected. Or I feel like I'm trying and now I got rejected. What can I do better? So I feel like failure to me, you have to kind of change the culture behind to say failure is learning. And if I'm not failing, that means I'm not trying hard enough.
Okay, Adrian, what's the biggest mistake you see in online businesses today?
In online businesses, the number one mistake that people make is that they don't have any type of recurring revenue. If you don't have any type of recurring revenue, every single month you're going to start at zero. And this is probably my biggest mistake I made. I didn't really change my business until 3 years ago. And I have years of seven figures. I have my highest month without recurring revenue was like $400,000 a month. It was great. Now the next month I had to start back at zero because I wasn't thinking about how do I continue to create value and have someone on a subscription or a plan where I can add value to them in perpetuity. And that's a very hard question that if you go on that path, is going to change your business fundamentally. And you'll always have sustainability versus the roller coaster that many entrepreneurs talk about.
Love it. I don't have any recurring revenue yet. We'll have to talk more.
Yeah.
What's the most surprising truth about millionaires?
Oh, well, we are being lied to constantly on social media around how millionaires spend their money, how they make their money, how they invest their money. Most millionaires are self-made, first of all. Like, this should be fabulous news. That shouldn't make you mad. And then secondly, most of them describe themselves as frugal. They are much more concerned about saving and investing and looking future-oriented than everyone else. And that's how they become millionaires.
What do you hope for people to learn about money the most?
I would love for people to view money as a way to buy back time. I have the assumption that everyone at least has this belief. Financial freedom is your ability to choose how you wake up, what time you wake up, and what your day should look like, with no ties or obligations or pressure from any outside force to be forced to do something. And if you do get that inclination or force or pressure, you have the ability to say, no thanks, I'm going to pass because I'd rather do something else. To me, that's the assumption I feel like that's my definition of financial freedom. And I feel like money and being good with money is how you get there. If you disagree with me and that doesn't sound good to you, then I don't think you never need to worry about investing or saving. But financial freedom to me and having time is the most valuable way that you can spend your money.
Yeah, there's a lot of pain and anxiety in people's relationships with money, but there can be so much safety, security, and happiness in those things. What do you want for people in terms of their relationship with money?
Yeah, I want people to feel good about it. I want people to have what they want to have what they need on those minimal levels of safety and security. And also, though, on the self-actualization level, to allow themselves to pursue their passions, what matters most to them. When it comes to end of life, people aren't really worried about, I wish I had had that hot tub or that car, or that house. Almost invariably, it's like, I wish I would have had the time and energy and courage to pursue that passion, to have had that experience, and to have spent more time with the people I love. So for me, it's all about that freedom, as Adrian said, to choose how you spend your time and with who you spend it.
Amazing. This has been fantastic. Where can folks find you guys online and learn more?
Yes, first, thank you so much for having us. It's been a blast. And so there, you can get the book where all books are available. It's called Start Thinking Rich. Or if you go to startthinkingrich.com/Josh, and that's going to have special freebies, bonuses, and tips that just for way we can say thanks for your audience and having us here.
Amazing. Any other last thoughts?
Just that we believe that, financial freedom is available to everybody. You don't have to become an entrepreneur. Most businesses fail anyway. I probably have a couple failing right now. You could become an entrepreneur. There are just many routes to get there. You could go the school route. You could go the employee route. You can go the entrepreneur route. But just always have a goal in mind on what it is you want with regard to your income, your net worth, and what freedom looks like for you. Because if you have the goal, you can absolutely find the mentors, you can absolutely find the strategies, and the path.
Adrian, Brad, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.